Welcome to the Real Life Groups Leadership Podcast, a conversation about creating small groups where people grow in spiritual maturity in relationship. We're focused on you, the small group leader, giving tips and tools to help you lead effectively. Well, welcome to today's episode. I'm super excited for this conversation. Today, we have some amazing guests. We have Blake Whiteman, who is our Coeur d'Alene Campus Pastor. Welcome, Blake.
Thanks.
Good to have you. And Travis Anderson's with us, and he is a small group leader, disciple maker in our community, just lives out what we're going to be talking about today, which is discipleship outside of the circle. I love that title. I love just that we get to talk about what it means to bring this whole conversation about small groups beyond just the time we have in the actual small group. What is outside that circle? So again, really looking forward to this. And so I just kind of want to start with this opening question is for you guys, why is this a topic that excites you?
Yeah, that's good. Thanks for having us. I know for me, on that question, I would say disciple making in general is something that's just impacted my life, changed it, to be quite honest. And I'm passionate about this specific conversation because I think the portion of disciple making in small group that has probably impacted it the most has been the time that I've spent outside of group, outside of the circle. It's an honor to have Travis here. Travis is a good friend of mine. We've got to live some of this out together and experience life and family and relationship outside of group time that's been fostered in it. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But I'm passionate because I just have seen the effectiveness of God's model come to fruition. I've lived it out. It's been awesome. So that's just one of the reasons why, for me, I'm passionate about it because I've seen it work.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Blake.
Yeah.
How about you, Travis? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And, I'm passionate about it because it's been so meaningful in my own life.
Yeah.
And admittedly, I was a pretty lukewarm Christian for a long time and floated in and out of groups. And really, it wasn't until 4 or 5 years ago when a couple guys in particular, one of them sitting across from me and Blake, took the time to intentionally invest in me and build relationship outside of a group setting.
Yeah.
That really was the catalyst for growth in my own spiritual maturity. And so, the goal there, and it inspires me to want to reciprocate that and replicate it out in the world.
That's so cool. I love that. So I'm a small group leader, and we have a variety of small group leaders from all over our county and even maybe the world that are listening into this conversation. And so let me just clarify. You're saying that being a small group leader is more than leading a 90-minute discussion once a week. Blake, is that what you're saying to me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, we can just wrap this up.
Yeah, we're done. And I think that, some of the challenges I think talk about discipleship, and even in church, and like you said, it's local, it could be national, whatever that may be, that we've seen opportunities. The temptation can be to look at it and say the small group is the solution. And it's an amazing tool. It's an incredible environment that helps foster spiritual growth and disciple making. But yes, I think that what Jesus' model shows us is that it's beyond just creating the environment, that I think leverages some extra growth and opportunity. So yes, it's a little bit more as a small group leader, which we're focusing on is what happens inside a group. The hope would be that we can further what we believe God calls us with relationship and transparency and sharing and doing life together like we've talked about, is that the group is a catalyst to that, that we don't have the expectation that all of that happens in group only, which I know for me can sometimes be discouraging as a group leader, wanting all of the things that we see and desire to happen and then not necessarily seeing it. And so, I think part of the challenge is to go, how do we use outside of group time to continue what starts and happens in group time?
Totally. And I can imagine a lot of that comes from different churches and the way they maybe go about spiritual formation, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
But helping someone grow. It might be Bible studies. It might be that's the culture is I show up at church and I leave church. I've spent my time. I did my thing. And so I'm now looking at it from a different standpoint, the background that I might bring into it, and going, actually, that is a starting. I love what you said. It's a catalyst to further relationship, but there's so much more to it than that. Travis, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the thing I've learned is having realistic expectations for how how much relational equity you can earn with a person. And it's only when you have that equity with somebody you can really speak truth and build them up and encourage them. And I think, if I'm honest, with my own walk, it's easy to fake it for 60 minutes in a group.
Yeah.
And it's easy to float in and out on Sundays and never really get to know somebody and do life with them. And the analogy I like to give is if I know I have a weekly test or a weekly quiz and I'm not super passionate about it, or I don't know how to navigate it, here's what I'm likely to do. I don't do anything for 6 days, and 30 minutes before that quiz, I'm going to cram. I'm going to take the quiz. I'm going to let out a breath, and I'm going to forget about it for 6 days. And I know for me, that's kind of how I treated group until somebody started investing in me and engaging me outside of group.
That's huge.
So, I think it's kind of knowing the limitations of the equity you can earn with people in a group setting.
Thanks for sharing that. I love what you said. Faking it and floating into and out of. And that is hard, because that's a lot of the church that we can see and experience in America. It's just that we can show up, do it, I can check the box, and I'm going to leave it.
Sure.
We're trying to create a different culture, and it sounds like you guys, this is something you've lived out personally. So let's kind of dive in a little bit to, like, what are some things that we can actually do to create that culture? Maybe Blake, kick us off. What's some things that you see to create that culture?
Yeah, so if one of the challenges we're seeing is, the desire is for people to grow in their relationship together. We talk a lot, at least at Real Life, to say, disciple making is in every sphere of your life, right? In every relationship. That's home, that's in your work or your world place. Yes, that includes church also, which includes a small group. In an abiding relationship with Jesus, we can want and desire to see that that's where God wants to change us, right? A new creation in every facet. But if we're not actually being intentional about getting into environments where that actually takes place, then we're going to fall short, right? We're going to be less than, I think, what God calls us to. So I think if we're talking about how do we find some solutions towards getting towards that, looking at small group environment is to first and foremost say, it is super valuable. Yes, it serves a purpose. It's great. A significant next step in people's growth is just to get to the small group and recognize that for what it's worth.
Just get there,
But as a group leader, also know that that's not the destination. Right. And so I would say the first thing that comes to mind with understanding that environment is, as a group leader, to be intentional, to not have the expectation that the group is the end destination.
That's really good.
But in the group, understand that, yes, Travis had used the test analogy. We're sports guys. We played basketball together. That was one of the things we did outside of group time, is trying to see our small group more as the huddle and not the game itself.
Love that.
And so as a group leader or a coach, to go, man, the small group time is when we get together to huddle, we're checking in, we're seeing how we're doing, we're coming up with strategy, we're talking about God's word, we're sharing a little bit, but that's not the game. It doesn't end there. That's the rally together, to meet together daily in the temple courts and in the homes, to talk about it, and then go, man, when I go home, how do I play this out? When I go to work, how do I play this out? And as a group leader, to recognize that the small group is to check in, to support, but also to equip to go into those environments, starts to leverage and be intentional to say, outside of the group time, works collaboratively with in the group time. So I would say the succinct point of that is to say, as a group leader, how do I be intentional to leverage the time I have in the group to point to what's happening outside? Is there connection outside? Am I creating relationship to meet outside of the group? And what that looks like. So the intentionality to look towards it and just mention it and know that it's part of it, I think, is the starting point.
It's great. And it starts relationship, but it's not the end in that relationship. It's kind of a catalyst, like you said earlier. Love that point. Travis, give us more. What's your next thing? What would you say to that group leader?
Yeah, I think Blake's point of just being realistic about what you can accomplish and knowing that that's the huddle. To me, the thing that I've learned is the first step is really level setting on whether I have an earnest desire to invest in those people outside a group, because let's be honest, you have to schedule it. If you're going to do it, you have to prioritize it, and it might look like sacrifice, although we'd probably say that we get as much out of it as anybody. And Blake's got a great quote, show me your schedule and I'll show you your priorities.
That's so good.
And so if
Yeah.
you aren't taking the time to really prioritize it and live it out and model it for others, you're really missing the mark. And the other thing is, as a leader, I think we have to know that we can't do it all ourselves.
Yep.
I'd like to be everything for everybody outside of the group, but I can't. And so I think it's incumbent of us to look for opportunities to empower and encourage others to engage outside of the group. So what that might look like is, I know somebody in groups going through a really hard time, and I also know somebody else has gone through it before and has lived it out and come through the other side. That's something that I would take the time to encourage him to go engage the other person and really empower them to do it outside a group as well.
That is so cool. And I love that because it isn't just about the leader owning all of the relational connection themselves. It's empowering that we see the bigger purpose of this group is to help each other grow in spiritual formation. We're trying to grow in relationship and grow spiritually, and that we want to actually propel that.
Sure.
So that's huge. Blake, what else? Just practical. How do we make this happen?
I think that's good. Kind of jumping off the last point Travis said, we use language, right? Try to have common identification and pull in the same direction. We use the terminology of facilitating relationship. So the intentionality piece of saying, hey, it's not all on me.
Yep.
As a group leader, the intentional part of going, okay, I'm seeing that there's affinity between people in the group. It's, hey, I've had this happen before. And actually, as the leader, playing the part as the leader is to actually facilitate that between two people to say, hey, you guys should go have coffee together, right? What would it look like? Hey, you guys are going to catch up, right? I've even had said those things before, like, so, okay, you guys are going to go have coffee together, and then you're going to come back and you're going to tell us how that went, right? That's a leadership portion of delegating, right? And allowing God to do something between other people, because I think we've all been to the spot to where you're like, okay, how am I going to set, even if it's a priority in my life, and I want to set a schedule, I don't have 14 extra appointments a week to actually be about that. And so I think part of the facilitating relationship is huge. One of the things I've learned along the way to kind of would go on that, learning meaning I've done it wrong.
Yeah, it's good.
Learning by trial and experience, I'm pretty good at that. As I've tried to go, okay, I know that facilitating relationship in the group is important, that this is going to lead to outside of group time. I know as a leader, sometimes that's felt like I now again have to create more environments that's relational, that people are going to actually want to be in.
Like another group or that's what you'd think.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so if we're going to, outside of group time, I'm already trying to create a relational environment in small group time. I'm trying to fight against Bible study and just the common stuff. I want to talk about life. Well, so now I have to create another environment outside of the environment. It's starting to get too much, and started to be like, okay, well, I guess we have to host dinner every time and invite people into it. Or, man, I got to create these fun things that, well, one person wants to do that, the other 5 don't. And one of the things I would say has been a helpful tool and tip for me as a disciple maker is to, instead of trying to recreate or create a new environment, is to go where people already are, right? People tend to gravitate. We say that the world sphere is to be a disciple maker where you live, work, and play. I'll say one of the biggest environments that I've seen God work in most practically is that play environment. Yeah. What do people do for hobbies where they already have relationships?
Great.
They're not going, okay, I have my church hat on, I have my work hat on. They're going, oh man, you're starting to see people let their hair down. We've played basketball together. We've done hunting together, right? That's what we've got to go. The amount of conversation and relationship and authenticity that we've had in those moments appears to be tenfold than when we're in the small group together, when we're on Sunday together. So I would say that one of the things to look for as a group leader is, what are people actually doing? Where do your kids do they have play together? Are they in sports together? Like, are they doing theater together? What sort of a work environment? Do you love to golf? Right? What are people doing? And then just be like Jesus did. This is a scripture piece, can't help, right? The model that Jesus shows us in the New Testament oftentimes is not, come to the synagogue and I'll teach you. But it's like the temple part, right? That's the church piece. And he doesn't say, come to my house. Come to my house and let's do a small group the whole time. There's portions of that. The vast majority of Jesus' disciple-making model is, let's go together. We're gonna sit with the Pharisees here. We're gonna go to the wedding banquet here. We're gonna go. So that's life. Those are already established relational environments where Jesus, I believe, calls us to go with people. And so I would say, try to find out where your people in your group are and what they do, and then join them in that. And that's outside of the circle disciple making.
That's so wise, just to see where they're actually already living in, and we're going to go walk alongside. That's discipleship. So let's say I'm a small group leader, and this doesn't come naturally to me, which I think literally applies to me. That doesn't come natural to me. That I would say, oh man, I want to make more time. I'm more of an introvert, and I'm sure there's lots of people in that camp where, it's like, what do I do with this? What are some kind of next steps that you would give that would help them grow in this area? We'll go back to you, Blake, first on that.
Yeah, well, I think just resource-wise, help-wise, what do I do that I know, at least for us in our church currently right now?
Yep.
I learned by asking questions. Yep. And I know that we do our very best to try to have coaches and leaders and people that are walking it out ask, hey, what do you do? What have you done? What does that look like, right? Yeah. Ask for solutions that people that are already playing the game, so to say, like, hey, what do you do? What have you done, right? And see where that goes. I think it's hard to try to be something you're not, right? I think that sharing just what maybe is kind of even the simple things that we've just talked about, like, hey, with your group or whatever, guys, here's something that I know. Group's not the end destination.
Yep.
Right. Man, I hope that together we can learn to have relationships between each other where things are affinity based, like do that. And hey, guess what? I would really love for us to kind of do life together in some other situations. Could you help with that? What does that look like for us?
Yeah.
Just putting it on the table.
Vision casting.
Putting it out there, and then watch what God does with the giftedness and ability of other people. I can say how many times just going, I don't know how to do this. I know that this is an effective tool for disciple making or model that Jesus gives us. I go, I'm just going to throw it out there. Yep. I'm just going to throw it out and then watch how somebody goes, hey, I'll do that. That's great. I would love to host. Man, hey, we're doing this thing. You should come, right? Yep. Talk about it, pray about it, and then all of a sudden, God provides the opportunity. So that would just be an initial thought on, like, as a next step. Yep. I know that there's other stuff that we try to do, as a ministry team and as a church. We can talk about that too. Yep. That's great. There's coaching structures, there's support. There's support. There's trainings, there's videos, there's coaches, there's monthly stuff. All the stuff that we already have in place as a church that we do routinely. We highly try to prioritize topics like this to be topics of discussion, not things that may not necessarily be helpful.
Yeah, I love what you said. It's that we can ask other people, we can bring in this community of people who might be doing it better than us. And that's a huge benefit, is just using the church for what it's for. And those that are living out relationship well, even just what you guys are sharing here today, I think is a help to a lot of people. How about you, Travis? What's your perspective of all this?
Well, first and foremost, I think Real Life does a phenomenal job of having a support structure for leaders out there that deal with situations that maybe they don't know how to navigate, and they've got people to go to get answers and counsel. I think the first thing to remember as a leader is that you don't have to have all the answers.
It's great.
And if we're waiting to have all the answers before we're really engaged in discipling others, we're never going to get in the game. And so being comfortable knowing you don't have to have all the answers is important. I think it's also important to pray for opportunities to be brought to you, that you have eyes to see them, and that you have boldness to engage. Because I do think as leaders, offline, one-on-one, it's a little more vulnerable. You feel like you have to be on. You haven't pre-scripted what you're going to say or what you're going to navigate in a group. So that's a big one. Without question, the most important one for me is to disciple others, I have to continue to be willing to be discipled myself. And I think it's modeled for us in Scripture in the early church. You look at Paul discipling Barnabas and Timothy and Philemon, who are discipling their churches.
That's great.
And so what inspires me, what causes me to continue to be humble and want to invest in others, is knowing that I have 3 guys, one of them sitting across from me, and Blake, who invest in me outside of the group environment in a very authentic, intentional way that you can't help but want to reciprocate that for others. And so, continuing to invest in yourself, whether it's reaching out to the support that Real Life provides, and then praying for the humility to continue to be discipled, because as we know in the walk for spiritual maturity, you never arrive. You never have it figured out. And so I'll still need discipleship for a long time.
Thanks for sharing that, Travis. And I think that's just a cool heart of being one of hundreds of small group leaders in our church. Just even hearing you share that to me is so encouraging, because it's that is the kind of, in our community, that's what changes the world. is when people go, I genuinely want to see people transformed, but I'm never done. I'm not done growing as a disciple, and the relationship you guys are living out, that is the kind of stuff that we see take place. So Blake, bring us home in just what's the impact of all this? What does this do for our church, our community, our world?
Yep, it's good. I'm even thinking of just the last question to bring it home, right?
Yeah.
You even said like, hey, what do I do? And this is hard. And have I arrived? I think that just the reality with this topic and all the other ones that we bring about is, I don't think that in any position of what God calls us to do, he asks us to do on our own. And part of being a disciple maker is part of having a life that's changed, a dependency on the Lord, and choosing to do it together. So, put me in the club with everybody else that goes, I don't know if I can do this perfectly. Yep. I'm not really sure. Yep. But I would say just to embrace this portion, another portion, to say, I'm going to choose to do this because of what I believe is true about the gospel, what Jesus has called us to do, and I want to choose to be obedient to that, and I'm going to choose to believe that God's going to show up in the midst of it. And I would wrap it up by saying that is that I think for a lot of us as disciple makers, and there's a couple of you out there that are like, I love being in relational type, awesome, like lead the way.
Good for you. Yeah.
That are like, gosh, this is gonna be hard. Like this is gonna trust is going to be required for me and other people. And man, if I take that step to have a conversation and bring it up with my group to go, hey, outside a group and in real life is really where God does life change the most. That's going to require a little bit of us going, it's going to be scary, and we're going to see. When I show up to this environment, somebody's house or this game or the recital, it's like, okay, it's a different environment. Yep. People are different in different environments. And just to know that it's a bit scary and it's a bit different. And like Trav said, you don't have to have the answers. But here's what I would tell you. Like, it's what God puts in every single one of us to desire the most. Yep. To be known, to have people actually do life with us together. Yep. So man, I need that outside of a small group and outside of church, because that's where I live the majority of my life. Yep. And when people, and Trav have had it together, and we've spent time together too, and our families and kids, it's like when people meet me there where I actually am, I finally start to feel like I'm known and I'm seen, and I got some stuff that's not perfect. And you know what? There's other people that are here too. That's the church. Yep. That's what disciple making is. That's what Jesus calls us to. And I would say, on record, if you will, that's what the majority of people are dying for. Yep. And they may fight you to get there and go, I don't want to do that, and I don't have enough time. But on the inside, they're going, man, if you would actually show up where I am, like, it's going to change my life.
I love that.
So I would say just knowing that, to say, I'm going to trust and I'm going to go and we can do this, is where I've seen personal life change. We've been able to do it together. And when in doubt, right, this is an Evan Meskyism. I love this guy. When in doubt, go. If you're not sure, when in doubt, just go and see what God does.
I love that. Well, guys, this has been so good. And I just love even that wrap up is showing up, going, and putting ourselves out there for relationship, saying it is, so to answer the question, go full circle, it is more than the 60 minutes, the 90 minutes. It is, discipleship is our whole life. Yeah. There's some practical things you guys shared today. I know this has been helpful for me, and I'm hoping it's been helpful for you, group leaders. Just want to say thank you for all that you do, and that you continue to show up. And hopefully today, this has been just one more step of growth and challenge. I just want to encourage you, say you're making a difference in our community, in our world, in showing up consistently. So I want to say thank you. And for all the information of our podcast, check out realliferesources.org. We're going to have other attachments, show notes, and other links and resources. I want to say thank you to you guys for being here today. This has been huge. Thanks especially you, Travis, for making time in the middle of your busy week to come in here to the church building and to impact so many people out there. So I want to say thank you, and we'll see you next time. We are grateful for the investment you make each week as you reach the world for Jesus, one person at a time, and make biblical disciples in relational environments. For notes from this show and other great resources to help you grow, visit realliferesources.org.